The next thing talks about sexual harassment, and so we're obligated to make sure that you're aware of our policy, and this is Board Policy 4019.11. The Board of Trustees prohibits sexual harassment of district employees and retaliatory behavior against any employee who files a complaint of sexual harassment or cooperates in an investigation. And this complaint process is established in accordance with the administrative regulation. So board policy is policy, and administrative regulation are how policies are enacted. It applies to all district employees, volunteers, and job applicants. So complaints of harassment shall be kept confidential as much as possible. However, in the course of investigation, sometimes complete confidentiality is not always possible. Any district employee who feels that he or she's been sexually harassed or has knowledge of any incident of harassment against another employee shall immediately report the incident to her supervisor, his or her supervisor, the principal, district administrator, etc. Again, as we have a policy for employees, we also have such a policy for students, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. As a supervisor or principal, if he or she receives a report of sexual harassment, the superintendent or designee will be notified. Usually that's myself as a designee in human resources. The employee may bypass her supervisor in filing a complaint if the complaint is about his or her supervisor. So if there's a concern about a site administrator, it may go to the district office. Any employee who engages or participates in harassment or aids, compels, etc., somebody else to commit sexual harassment is in violation of this policy up to and including dismissal. So there's really two parts to this. As an employee, you have a right to an environment free of sexual harassment, but you also have a responsibility that if you observe it, especially in regards to a student, that you report it. What is sexual harassment? So sexual harassment includes, but not limited to, unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, unwanted verbal or visual or physical contact of a sexual nature when another person of the same or opposite gender in the work environment. So right there, that's harassment. So if you look at the very first paragraph, that's an issue. And if it's brought to administrative attention, it will be looked into. There's another level, though, when it becomes conditional, when it becomes a condition for another action. So if the harassment is submission to the conduct is explicitly or implicitly made a term of employment or academic progress. So there you see both an employee kind of aspect to it, but also academic progress refers to students, right? Submission or rejection of the conduct by the harassing individuals used as a basis of employment or academic decisions affecting the individual. The conduct has a purpose of creating a negative environment, either as an employee or as a student. And submission or rejection is used as the basis for a decision affecting an employee, like a promotion or another employment decision, or student in terms of grades, what have you. So what are examples of sexual harassment? As we mentioned, unwelcome physical conduct, any physical action, massaging, grabbing, fondling, stroking, brushing the body, either purposely or incidentally. The important thing to know about sexual harassment is there's intent and impact. So there may not have been intent for the contact, but if the impact on the receiving individual was of concern, he or she may report that and will be looked into and hopefully determine that although the intent and impact may have been different, the person is on notice that their behavior was not appropriate. Unwelcome visual conduct, drawings, pictures, graffiti, so posting things in a classroom that might be offensive. Displaying sexually suggestive objects is not appropriate. And verbal conduct, such as sexual flirtations, propositions, comments about an individual's body, overly personal conversations, pressure for sexual activity, sexual jokes, stories, unwelcome sexual slurs, etc. Innuendos, derogatory comments, sexually degrading descriptions. And this last one, spreading of sexual rumors. And that has to be really a concern as both an employee, certainly, and also as students. You model the appropriate behavior, so we don't want to be discussing students' social behavior, relationship behavior, what have you, in an open environment. So as mentioned, there is also a student aspect to this. We've kind of referred to that already. Some of the same behaviors that are not acceptable for adults or employees are also applied towards students. So again, unwelcome physical or requests for sexual favors, sexual advances, anything that's in an educational setting on the basis of sex under any of the following conditions. So These are the same conditions again. Submission to is a condition of academic advancement, having a negative impact on the students in educational setting, and rejection by the conduct by the harassing individual creates a negative consequence for the student. So no benefits or things offered conditionally based on submission to any kind of sexual request or favor. For students, the unwelcome conduct is a little bit more detailed. There's 12 of these, but they all kind of feed into the same theme about leering, sexual flirtations, slurs, verbal comments, jokes, derogatory posters, notes, stories, drawings. So this is something to be conscious of in your teaching and in your instruction. Sexual rumors, sexual remarks, massaging, grabbing, fondling, touching an individual's body or clothes in a sexual way, impeding or blocking movements, or any physical interference with school activities, displaying sexually suggestive objects, assault, battery, electronic communications are all elements we need to be mindful of and be aware of.